So good morning again to many of you that I've seen in the previous session, and good morning to the others that are joining us for this session on building the resource for AI in science in Europe. No need to say how important AI is. We had the pleasure and the honor yesterday to close the first day of those R&I days with a session on AI with the participation of the European Commission Vice President Anna Virkkunen. And the one of you that have followed that heard the importance that we are giving, obviously, to AI in Europe, all the instruments that we are putting in place in order for Europe to be really front runner in this ride for AI. Within this context, AI in science has a very, very special place. Through AI in science, we can fundamentally change the way that science is done. We can fundamentally support and change the way research is carried out. But also through AI in science, we can also obviously create new solutions for new problems that would feed into the startup arena that is so much needed in Europe and boost ultimately the European Union's competitiveness. Also, what we want to do in Europe is to strengthen the support that we give through research to AI development, and that is why we are building RAISE, the resource for AI in science, which aims at supporting the use of AI in science and also the science for AI. What we want to do with RAISE is to really pull together the efforts that we are deploying at EU level, especially on 4 specific areas: on data, on infrastructures. We heard also yesterday, and you have heard from the President of the Commission already in Paris in February, when there was this important AI conference, that the European Commission is now launching some gigafactories to support, to strengthen the support to AI, and Mrs. Virkkunen referred to that yesterday. So the infrastructure for AI, the data availability. We heard also yesterday the person that was speaking from Airbus, the importance of data. Talent is key for that, and in line with the Choose Europe approach in science, we want to really attract in Europe, promote and attract in Europe talent for AI. And obviously, last but not least, the funding. The funding, we need to step up the funding for AI, both the public and the private ones. So with those words, I'm very happy to have this panel. We have 3 distinguished participants of the panel that I would like to introduce. We have Petra Dalunde, who is co-director of the Swedish AI factory, Mimer. Welcome, Petra. We have Fabian Theis. Fabian Theis is the head of the Computational Health Center at Helmholtz Munich, and he's the chair of the Bavarian AI Council for the Bavarian government, And then we have Jessica Montgomery, who is the director of the Accelerate Science at the University of Cambridge. I'm very happy to have the 3 of you here and to have all of you in the audience, because we are fine-tuning the strategy for AI in science and the concept of RAISE, the resource for AI in science. This strategy is expected to be adopted by the Commission on the 7th of October. It will present also the concept and the actions that RAISE will encompass. And this event for us, it's really very interesting in order to hear from you in this final phase of development of the AI in science strategy and RAISE. So I would like to thank you for your participation and start with some questions. And also I would like to say that we will also want to engage with the audience, so we will have an interactive session as much as possible, I hope. Let me start with you, Petra. I spoke about the importance of the computer for AI, computer power, and I wanted to ask you, who has been working in the Swedish AI factory, Mimer, in a hub dedicated to life sciences and material sciences, if you can share with us your insights in pooling computational resources for science and how possibly to scale this model across Europe.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. So, Sweden has a long tradition of pooling infrastructure and resources between industry and academia, like many European member states. In Sweden, we have Ericsson, Volvo, ABB, and many more that has been working together with academia, universities, and RTOs for a long time. This tradition we brought into the application of the Swedish AI factory in Mimer. And what we, except for compute and accessing compute, brings and creates is this ecosystem where AI innovators can meet researchers and industry. So we can get this fantastic collaboration and pooling also competence, because these different groups can learn so much from each other. So the ecosystem and networking and the hubs, I think they will be important, maybe as important as compute. Also, what we have learned from the HPC, NCC assets, the supercomputers that are already out there, is how we pool these resources together. So the AI factories that hasn't been built yet, we are using the old supercomputers already for training AI. We already have a couple of customers in Mimer using Lumi or Meluxina. So the pooling and sharing is already there. But when Mimer opens next summer, it will be the first supercomputer and AI factory that is totally designed for AI training. Even though we will be the smallest one, we will be the first one actually opening up. So it's very interesting to see what will happen then, because now it's kind of a threshold to use the old supercomputers that wasn't built for AI training, clearly. But we also need to remember that all the AI factories are talking to each other already. So now our task is to make sure that the customers and researchers that are coming end up in the right AI factory. That is one thing, but also to have a good knowledge of the other large infrastructure, AI infrastructures in EU, like the EDs and the TEFs and the NCCs, so we always can meet our customers, regardless of research or AI innovators, and put them in the right context. That is also our responsibility.
Thank you very much, Petra. I really take from your intervention the importance of creating an ecosystem, a vibrant ecosystem for AI, and connecting the tools, including the AI factories, the future gigafactories, and others that we have. And this is exactly what we want to do with RAISE. Let me now turn to Fabien. Fabien, your work at the intersection of AI and healthcare will highlight how RAISE can help to build the next frontier models in life sciences and model reproducibility in critical fields. What we would be interested to hear from you is how we can pull the data required for AI in science, and what do we need to do to have a success story in Europe in this respect?
Yeah, thanks, Maria. First, for sort of raising our interest in AI for science. I really think it's a game changer. I think the type of models that we can start building now, it's just sort of on a new scale. These digital twins that we sort of wanted to do beforehand were just not executed, but now we can do this. And I think obviously, at the core is data for that. As scientific director of Helmholtz AI, this is sort of this network across the Helmholtz Association, Europe's largest research organization, if you want. We sort of have all kinds of scientific fields having some of these needs, and we sort of bring things together, we sort of distribute stuff out, but there's some fields doing very well. I'm thinking about climate science, for example. There's just like one Earth, so a lot of data is in one place, it's sort of easy to share. Let's sort of work it out. I think in some other fields, and there, of course, my own one that I'm most active, life science and health, it's a bit more complicated. But I do think there's some unique things. Let's say European health data spaces, they seem to be working out hopefully by 29. I think that's sort of the rough age, the rough time point. And we're going to have 500,000 somewhat, hopefully jointly accessible data sets, right? Where we can sort of train variation across all of them. This is something we don't have in US, and this is something we don't have in China, but this is sort of data that we can potentially work on. So I'm super excited about that. So how can we leverage that? There's some ideas with federation, and in some parts, I think you can sort of train here, and maybe at least fine-tune or use models at inference. But I think for actually training and building these big, let's say, foundation, even frontier models, at data, that's AI gigafactories or factories such as yours, I think we need to sort of bring these data sets more and more together. As an example, in Bavaria, the ministry just sort of signed an act for building a Bavarian health cloud where actually you can put that research type of data at one place and then train, because you bring the data to the chips, right, at least for sort of the first training. And I think that's going to really give us sort of a hub for sort of pushing things to the next level. And maybe just as a last thing, to really get people to build this, but then also to use this, I think excitement is the key thing. I'm sure many of you are researchers, and in the end, if you want to get people to sort of do that stuff, you need to have some excitement, some sort of bigger vision of doing. I mean, this is sort of why OpenAI sort of put the language models out, right? And for us in health, something that we do at our department at the moment in Helmholtz is called the virtual human model. It's something we've been sort of coming up as sort of the next digital twin type of thing. Essentially a frontier model that really builds now variation across all scales, starting from the molecules to the cells. In my lab, for example, we're developing virtual cells, just Nature Methods coming out on that. But to really bring it up to the human. And this joint model, that needs a lot of this data. That sort of could really leverage European health data space type of scale. It needs a lot of compute. Typically, AI in science, often we don't have maybe those biggest compute needs, but on that scale you start doing this, and you need to sort of integrate across scales. So there our vision, not just do it locally, but actually because this is such a big thing, to do it jointly, is to execute then these single level foundation models, but put them together. We just had a perspective in Nature on sort of multimodal foundation models, and I think having these, then sort of enabling experimental design for partners all over Europe and of course beyond, sort of asking these models that are then publicly available, not sort of belonging to a company, right? And of course still building on sort of industry ecosystem around it. I think that could really enable a lot of things. So I think this vision to then build these models, I think is going to be key to then actually have exciting projects on top of that.
Thank you very much. Again, I underline the fact of putting things together, connecting the dots. That's very important. And indeed, you mentioned the US and China. Obviously, we know the huge investments that are taking place in the US and China, the success that those countries have developed on AI. But what I wanted to say is that they don't have something like we want to put in place. This resource for AI science would be unique in Europe. And we do believe in the European Commission that on AI in science and for science, there is a space that also we can occupy and that we should do that. In order to occupy this space, an important element is talent. I would like now to turn to Jessica. Jessica, your work is crucial to build on the excellent human capital we have in Europe. You are also chairing the mutual learning exercise for AI in science that we are carrying out under the ERA, the European Research Area Policy Agenda. And in this framework, you had the first hand overview on experiences and best practices from in Europe on AI in science with regards to talent. So I wanted to ask you if you could share with us what can the EU do to attract and retain top AI scientists and researchers who are ready to use AI in their work, to attract and retain, and also to strengthen the researchers, the talent of the researchers that we do have in Europe in this field. Jessica.
Thank you. And as you say, research and talent are strategic advantages for Europe in AI and should be the key levers that we have to really lead the world in the adoption of AI in science. There is a tendency when we talk about talent to think about individuals, but just as important is the community and the ecosystem that are around those individuals. We want to plant seeds and make sure they have the soil, the climate, and the networks to be able to grow. And that means as a starting point, recognizing three things. The first is that AI for science involves a diverse set of talent needs. We want world-leading AI researchers developing next-generation AI methods that can push forward our capabilities in AI for science. We want domain scientists who are empowered to deploy AI in their science and have the knowledge and know-how that they need to use these technologies safely and effectively. And we need a community of machine learning engineers, data managers, people who are able to work across disciplinary boundaries to translate these advances into toolkits, into practices that can be shared and adopted more broadly. Secondly, the scale of transformation we're talking about needs innovative approaches to building talent. We need an approach that scales. So that means working as a community to share that know-how and to support each other as researchers in adopting what works and in making sure we're bringing forward a new generation of researchers who are trained to use AI almost by default. And thirdly, we should be learning from the innovation that's already happening on the ground. And during the mutual learning exercise, we heard about a range of existing AI for science initiatives, from AI for science hubs in the UK, AI as a service as a model in Belgium, the cluster of excellence in Tübingen, the work by Helmholtz in Germany. There's a range of existing practices that countries are adopting that are tailoring what's going on in AI for science to their local needs. So if we start by looking at those success factors in talent for AI for science, then we can think about creating the conditions for success. That means sustained strategic support that allows people to grow capability in this area over the long term and have the confidence to be able to take risks and try things that might not work immediately. It means creating spaces that are safe for experimentation, that allow researchers to pick up something new and try it. And it means having career pathways that make sense for interdisciplinary researchers, that encourage researchers to go outside their initial domain and try new things with AI and do that in a safe and effective way. Because the talent is here in Europe. We have the ability to attract leading AI talent as well, but we can do more to create the conditions for the success of that talent, and RAISE will be a great initiative to help deliver that success.
Thank you very much indeed. We do hope so that with RAISE we can occupy this space, create these conditions, and also promote a way to have these networks that you also refer to. Now we spoke about the computer capacity, the infrastructure and data, the talent. Obviously there is another element which is very important, which is funding. So now, crucial element, funding, be it public funding and private funding, which is also very important. So I would like to ask you a final question to the three of you. Where do you think that funding would be most needed and with the highest impact to support European scientists using AI in their research? I will do men first and start from you, Fabienne.
I mean, Jessica and you actually mentioned already talent, right? And I think for me, the single biggest thing that sort of the European Union has done to actually raise already now existing AI thing is, of course, the ESC grants, right? So this is sort of the bottom-up type of initiative, and I just want to sort of really be very thankful for that thing that sort of really gives basically all those exciting talents that you were speaking about, this opportunity to apply and sort of non-compete, like in a competition, sort of come up with the ideas and bring it. So that's like just working so well. I think we have like 15 of these running our department, and those are just super great talents, right? But once you have that, like how can you start the connections that we were discussing, right? I mean, in Europe, we set up, as an example, this Alice machine learning network of experts that actually also has a very nice PhD program. I think one of the things that works best to actually bring in sort of more junior talent, top researchers really across the board, across many disciplines, bringing this in. And then maybe sort of this last ingredient that you can think about, and that could maybe also be sort of really connected to RAISE, is like you have sort of this across the board, but you need some of these lighthouses. There was always this ongoing discussion, do we need an CERN for AI or something like that? That's maybe a bit too specific, but I think, let's say, around those AI gigafactories, right? I mean, they sort of aggregate data. There's going to be a data component for sure. Obviously, a lot of compute, maybe even a shitload of compute, but really big. But like you need to have the researchers around that, right? You need to have this ecosystem that then sort of makes use of that. And that could be science, but obviously also a lot of industry, right? And I think there, having such a hub where these sort of people are around already anywhere, and there's a few places that we are, I think, really worldwide top one, or at least in the leading places in a few areas. And around these things together, and I think that needs substantial additional funding, of course.
Thank you very much, Fabian. Just for clarity, indeed, you mentioned the CERN for AI, which was mentioned also in the political guidelines of the President of the Commission for this second term of our presidency. We are going to raise based on this concept through the different interactions that we had with the scientific community. We have thought that the best way forward is to have a networking of what exists in Europe and strengthening what existing instead of creating new infrastructures. We want to create the ecosystem in a way which is distributed throughout Europe.
Yeah, super short comment. I hope you heard that I was a bit critical about the single one place. And actually, we have all of these, but just bringing together what happens already in all of these, I think, is the call of the hour, not just like have another new random.
Absolutely, no. I just wanted to clarify with the audience also, because it's important, because we heard CERN for AI in science, and I wanted to clarify that RAISE is for us. Based on the discussions that we had with the community and that you just confirmed with the scientific community, what is needed now and what we hope can match the high ambitions and objectives that we have. But again, on funding, I will turn to you, Petra, and then to Jessica.
And I will not repeat what Fabian already said, because that is like basic. So if we find a potential innovation, we need to grab it. We need to be able to identify it and grab it, and then we need to have processes that turns it into a startup. And this startup will not have to build like a power plant in order to actually use or train AI models. They will have only to put the plug in the wall, and that is the AI factories and the gigafactories. So they can spend their time and money hiring people, developing product, finding customers, and do the things that is important for them. So that is another aspect and next level. Also, I think AI factories may need to contact the venture capital part here. I don't know how yet, but that is something that I definitely will look into, because I think it is important that we merge also these parts. So that is something, and so financing from publics is here, and we are super grateful, and we need to move a bit forward from that.
Yes, we need to move forward and fast, as also Draghi recalled to us yesterday. Jessica, over to you.
So during the mutual learning exercise, we heard about two types of funding need. One is funding that allows us to respond quickly to emerging opportunities on the ground. So across member states, we already see demand from researchers to be able to try new AI methods in their science today. So what can we do with small grants or light touch interventions that allow people to pick up and play with those tools and see what results they get before moving to scale? The second is a need for creative ways of building large-scale public-private collaborations that are combining world-class research facilities, domain expertise, access to compute and engineering support with pathways for spin-outs and commercialization. We've already seen some examples of that type of collaboration emerging, and there's an opportunity there to go forward with that type of collaboration, bridging into what Fabian was saying in terms of having that ground-up community-led approach with signals that are showing the scale of our ambition.
Thank you very much. Indeed, public-private collaboration is very important. Speaking about being fast, time is running very quickly, but I would like to see if there are some questions that, at least one question that we can take from the audience. Can I see the questions that we received from Slido? Okay. Yeah, I will take the three questions together, asking the three of you to say just three words on three questions. First of all, how we can promote interdisciplinarity, how we can maximize the rich diversity of Europe, and how we can help early career researchers to adopt the necessary skills to effectively use the AI in the scientific conduct. Very quickly to the three of you, some key words on that. Petra.
My hope is that AI factories will answer all these three questions, and that is what we aim for anyway, so very short answer.
Great, short and sharp.
Yeah.
Fabienne.
I think the interdisciplinarity is really important. We've been thinking a lot about education. You must have been as well, Jessica. And I think sort of for start, let's say bachelor, you start with one discipline, but for example, PhD projects, we now really put people both from an sort of applied as well as sort of an AI type of discipline there. Like really the idea of a data scientist knowing data domain, I think it's absolutely crucial. Otherwise you won't do AI in science, and having that sort of method-y type of expertise. And you know, those students, they're picking up so quickly, and it's really fantastic. They're coming out there, and you know, industries and companies are also gobbling them up if they don't continue in academia.
Thank you very much. Jessica.
So let's double down on Europe's tradition of open science and open innovation so that we are sharing the practices that are emerging and look for different ways of sharing access to knowledge and know-how through peer mentoring, more informal training, these lighter touch mechanisms that can really drive change quickly.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think that what you said gives us a lot of hope that what we are doing in the European Commission goes in the right direction. And I would like to thank the three of you for your very valuable interventions and participation to this panel. I would like to thank the audience for being here and for your active participation. I would like to thank my colleagues for having really so skillfully organized this session. And I would like to say that you should stay tuned. We will have, as I mentioned, the AI in Science strategy adopted by the European Commission on the 7th of October. And I really invite all of you to look at that when it will be adopted. It's not only a strategy, it's a strategy with the foundation of RAISE, but also with concrete actions that will be launched. And then there is a very important event to which I would like to invite all of you, which is the first ever AI in Science Summit that we will organize together with the current Danish presidency of the Council of the European Union in Copenhagen on the 3rd and 4th of November 2025. The registration QR code is on the screen. Please do register and come. We spoke a lot about networking, ecosystem, getting together, pooling resources, and especially human beings are part of that. So I hope that I will see all of you in Copenhagen and have a nice continuation of the R&I Day. Thank you so much.